Rahui Kātani.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Statutes amendment format is one which normally avoids the need for extended discussion. By its very nature as an omnibus bill, consisting entirely of amendments to acts, we know that the amendments must be minor, technical and non-controversial. Indeed, if there was to be any objection, the statute requiring amendment must be removed before the bill is tabled. It can be taken for granted, therefore, that any amendments problematic to the Māori Party have already been deleted from the bill. I don't intend to draw out the debate unnecessarily, challenging the basis for the minor drafting amendments submitted to, for example, the Animal Products Act or the Agricultural Compounds and Veterinary Medicines Act. Most of the changes are clear-cut. There's the amendment to the Births, Deaths, Marriages and Relationships Registration Act, which repeals Section 61 as registrars and celebrants no longer keep register books. Nothing controversial about that. Some of the changes will cause some angst amongst law lecturers. For example, when I was a student taking equity, the word amongst the students there was that the law lecturer had never changed his lectures for decades. He was doing the same thing. Now with the changes to the witnessing of signatures on wills, that is definitely going to have to be changed on that subject, and it's going to mean that law students will no longer have to read hours and hours and hours on case law on that one. So that is going to be a very popular one amongst law students, I think. Some of the changes are thoroughly sensible. A good example of that is the decision to substitute Clause 53 of the Conservation Act with a new section to provide that a person in charge of a dog, as well as the owner of the dog, commits an offence if the dog attacks and seriously injures or kills protected wildlife in a controlled dog area. This is about encouraging collective responsibility, protecting our native flora and fauna, and we should all support that goal. We are pleased with Part 18 of the bill, which amends the Electoral Act 1993 to simplify the process for updating the electoral roll when there are changes to an elector's details as a result of a marriage or a civil union. An action which can assist in encouraging and promoting voters to take up their democratic entitlement to vote will always receive the full support of the Māori Party. We only wish that there were other more visionary amendments for the Electoral Act, including that all people should be automatically enrolled onto the Register of Voters at the age of 18, onto the Māori roll of Māori, with an option to transfer to the general roll or onto the general roll if the person is a non-Māori. We believe that such an amendment, which was a proposal that came out of the Māori Party Policy Manifesto, would do a great deal to increase the opportunities for New Zealanders to participate in the democratic process. Like Mr Chevelle, I noted that Clause 103 of the National Parks Act substitutes a new definition of foreshore. I would be interested to hear back from the Minister the precise relationship of that new definition to the existing Foreshore and Seabed Act 2004. Section 5 of that Act defines foreshore and seabed to mean, first, the marine area that is bounded on the landward side by the line of mean high water springs and on the seaward side by the outer limits of the territorial sea, that is 12 nautical miles. The report of the Ministerial Review Panel of the Foreshore and Seabed Act, Pakia ki Uta, Pakia ki Tai, reported that prior to the enactment of the 2004 Act, the foreshore and seabed were legally distinct areas, but after its enactment, the two are now legally coalesced into a single area. The Ministerial Review Panel went further, and I quote, "The Act has to be the biggest single land nationalisation statute enacted in New Zealand history. Defenders of the legislation could maintain, however, that the government was under the impression that the area belonged to the Crown absolutely in any case, and that the legislation was not so much an expropriation as the correction of an anomaly." Mr Speaker, I raise the question of the definition of foreshore as it applies to this National Parks Act because I think the Ministerial Review Panel has suggested there is considerable room for variation in the interpretation of definition. We would expect the highest standards of rigour to apply in the following stages of analysis, and we will be watching that debate with considerable interest. Finally, I just make mention of Part 43, which amends the membership of the Taratahi Agricultural Training Centre Trust Board in the Wairarapa. Taratahi has just celebrated its 90th year of operation. It was originally established in 1919 in central Wairarapa as a training farm for men returning from the First World War. It is a key organisation to inspire young people to a career on the land and to provide opportunities for developing skills and experiences of value in agriculture and other rural industries. Taratahi has invested considerable time in working with established tertiary training providers such as UCOL and Wairariki Polytechnic, as well as various Māori incorporations and trusts. I note also that included within their educational goals is the intention to increase Māori participation. So when an organisation with such a solid reputation and a vision for the future asks for amendments to its board membership, surely it is the role of Parliament to simply oblige, and that is what we will be doing. We will support the Statutes Amendment Bill at this its first reading.